My name is Anna Sosa. Do you want my full name?
No, if you're comfortable.
It's Anna Christine Velez Sosa. Beautiful. So my dad is from Manila and my mom is from Cebu. I've really tried to tone this one down. Survivors and I'm gonna say healers is what I respect about this. The other word I would have chosen is connectors. I think that's what I think describes the Filipino spirit. Well, this is so strange because I think it starts off earlier than when my parents came here. My grandmother on my mom's side, and like basically both sets of grandparents, they were around the Philippines when Japan invaded. And it's so interesting to me because my grandmother loves Japan. She loves the people, and when she finally came to the US, I think when I was born, 1984, she described to me that when she finally landed on the tarmac in Japan before the next leg to the US, she was so grateful that she kissed the tarmac when she got off the steps, you know, and there's a number of complex reasons for that. But the capacity to love, I don't want to say it's a people that hurt her people so much, you know, but like I feel like that's like a huge piece of it. That's the start of that immigration story, or like that's a kernel of it. Otherwise, objectively, my dad was in the Navy, of course, in the Philippines, and then he married my mom, and they came here in 1979 and had my first of my siblings, my eldest brother, and have been here in Virginia ever since. They didn't move anywhere else. I do remember it, but as like some of my relatives have passed away, I hear about it less and less, but it sticks with me. Not specific stories, unfortunately, but like images of it. My dad's younger brother, of one of his many, he was like paralyzed from like the neck down when he came to the US. And he was so charming though. And he would just, unfortunately, just be lying or sitting and tell us stories about ASWANG. And they were both really funny and harrowing and terrifying and full of imagery. And what I loved about it is that he didn't necessarily, because we weren't his kids, we were his nieces and nephews, he didn't use it to scare us into behaving us. He used it, or making us behave, he used it more to warn that like, there are really dangerous things out there, you know, and just to basically be aware and that sort of thing. So that's what I remember about the ASWANG, or that's how I think of it. The most vivid imagery I can think of though is he said that he was hanging out with his brothers, of which he has plenty, including my dad. And they climbed over this like sort of chain link fence in the Philippines at night in a really big field. And the lady in white was around when they were helping each other like climb the fence. And they thought, oh, like it wasn't a big deal. She's like distance, like maybe we just saw it. But then like when they got the last person, she was like reaching out her hand towards them, and they like freaked out. So that's that. I don't know what they were doing climbing fences at night in the Philippines. Being Filipino-American to me means that you carry home with you wherever you go. You know, I know that like every person technically can do that, and movies and shows like Finding Your Roots, which I love, that television show, like are about that. But I think there's just something very distinctive that I can't quite verbalize, that Filipinos truly do quite physically carry home with them in a way that it can exude itself in a feeling of magic, you know, it can feel that ethereal, but it also can feel quite concrete at times, and like you're slamming yourself up against it. And a lot of times it's for the good, because especially in these times, it can feel very like you're on shaky ground. So it's good to know that it's like inside of you regardless. Well, I think about it in terms of my uncle. because it was more like brought up like the dangers of the world and not really like this superstitious, supernatural element. And so, you know, that perhaps they're not beings so much as like the machinations of like the imperfect parts of being human, like hate and prejudice and loneliness and isolation, I feel like is how it manifests here. Because it can feel like a person, some of those things, and they're very haunting and they're nice to wallow in sometimes too. But then you end up realizing what the real identity is of that thing, and you're like, oh no, too late. I should have booked it earlier away from these feelings and these thoughts.
That's really beautiful. I've never thought about it that way. That like a lot of those tales from like the ASWANG and what they do, like it's a lot of like grief and like all these things, but it's like manifested into a being.
Yeah, or like resentment, you know, I think resentment is the one I think about a lot because it's so complex, this like where resentment comes from. And I feel like it is here. It's not the 1500s that we're talking about, but it's here, and we'll be able to ask that question to somebody else down the road of, if it came here in the 1970s, you know, what would it be now? And someone's gonna have hopefully a more specific answer to that, because I think that's a legitimate thing. It's here, it did come here. I would have to say that the pride is still going to be there, but there's a lot less shame. Because I think that shame is what, like, between my parents and me, like, that's that thing that we can't seem to, like, figure out, is this level of shame. And I think it's not too different. We feel like what my parents and I feel, or my parents and my siblings feel. Shame is like very specific and a niche thing that's gonna go away in a few months if you like just stop worrying about the wrong things. But I think it's a much more long-term thing, and what I'm hoping is through stories being shared and through not being ashamed of sharing them too, that those deeper levels of shame don't exist. And that we, like, you know, we're just a much more, we're already open. I feel like Filipinos are very open, but we also can be a little protective, a little guarded. And so I think that hopefully I'd see less of that in the future. So currently the Poke Maymar location in Ocean View, I went there recently and it was so sweet. And I liked their lumpia because it was actually like well cooked. It wasn't like just a little golden, it was very golden. And I don't know them, but I went there because that was my favorite Filipino grocery store when I was a child. And they had the best buko juice. Like, it was the sweetest buko juice I'd ever had in my life. And I don't think it had sugar in it. They did get the little coconut husks in it. But I wish I knew who that family was, because it was like the best Filipino grocery store in my opinion. I definitely love Project Seed. I've definitely been getting my coffee from there.
Well, that was everything. Is there anything else with regards to being Filipino-American that you would like to share with us today?
I'll go back to what my brother, I guess, said. You know, the question of if I wasn't Filipino-American, if I was just in the Philippines, like, would I be a different person? And I have no doubts that I would be, but not in any way that's like so foundationally different that it's like one's better than the other, you know? I think the big difference there is the people that I meet, you know? I probably would not have met you, honestly, if I was in the Philippines. I probably would not have met my current fiance-to-be. And, you know, that's not to say that that's better than one or the other. And that's something that I try to impart when I do get a chance to speak to my relatives in the Philippines. I love them. I get why they want to come here, but it's, again, you carry home with you. It's not like this place is going to suddenly make it better, I guess is how I'll put that.